Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the big walkthrough. It's nice to see so many people online and chatting away already. It's great to see you all. So today on the big walkthrough, I am Richard. I am the product engagement specialist for the UK. That means I do all the events and all these online talks for you. And we have got an amazing show planned for you this evening. So we are going to be talking about slime mold photography, and it's a very particular type of photography. It can be very, very difficult to photograph, and I imagine a lot of you are very interested in terms of how that actually happens. And we've got an amazing guest today that takes this and does this when and where he can, and has produced some amazing results over the years. So we're very, very excited to have a chat with him and just see how he does it all. So from there, make sure you kind of get your questions in through the chat, kind of let us know where you're from. There's already a lot of hellos. I will try and go through some of them as we go through. So make sure you get your questions in. There will be a dedicated question and answer time later on as well. And let me just go straight to the poll for you. So let me just open the slides. There we are. So yes, let us know, are you an OM user, and do you already do slime mold photography? I'm interested to see how many people say yes to that, and how many people say no. I'm really, really intrigued. So working with me alongside me today, looking through the comments, is Craig. So let me just bring him on for a second. Hello, Craig. How are we doing?
Hi, Richard, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our listeners. I see we've got people from literally all corners of the earth at the moment. Yeah. So yeah, hello to you all, basically. Yeah. So, live and direct.
Yeah, Connecticut, Germany, Norway, Wales, Indiana, Florida, lots of other UK ones as well. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot on there. But anyway, how have you been? Been busy?
Yep, always busy, you know that, Richard, but it's been good. We've got more coming up as well. So as we'll come on to later, lots of events coming up. But yeah, we are very busy.
Yes, yeah, it's always good. It's always good to be busy. So let's bring on our guest. I'm just going to bring our slides back in. So just let us know on the polls then, guys. Just let us know where you are and what you're doing. So Glenn, now I had the fortunate point to be able to meet Glenn a few months ago at a retailer's event. He came up to me, showed me his iPad of images, and blew me out the water straight away, not even really knowing what he was showing me. And from then, we've had lots of great discussions and lots of chats about kind of lots of different things in related to slime mold photography. And even I've been learning a lot from him. Even writing this slideshow, I've learned a hell of a lot. So it's been a really, really interesting time. So Glenn, from my understanding, is a very intricate photographer. He has got a very engineered brain, should I say, about building layers of images and how all that works really, really quickly, and how we can find the smallest of subjects and basically put all that together and compose it in great precision. So I'm already amazed by his images, and I'm sure you guys will be later on as well. So let's bring Glenn on. Hello, Glenn. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Nervous?
Yeah, you're all right. You're in good company. You got me and Craig. We're two of the most chilled out people. So don't worry about the audience. They're just in the background doing their own thing, watching us with a cup of coffee, just like we would be doing if we weren't on this doing it. So
they've already got lots of questions as well for you. So I'll be keeping an eye on them.
Okay. So just make sure you highlight them for us, Craig, as they come through, so we can go back to them. So what have you been doing this year, Glenn? What's this year brought for you so far?
This year I've been trying to photograph insects, especially things in flight, different kinds of wasps, different beetles, obviously at the moment looking for fungi or any slime molds is a bit out the window because it's so dry. I've been to Portugal for a little bit of time this year, spent about 8 weeks out there over 2 periods, photographing birds, orchids, and doing the resulting stacks is taking me still from stuff at Easter. I'm still working with it.
Yeah,
it takes me a long time to do a stack.
Yes, yeah, and it's not necessarily kind of just taking the stack that takes the time, right? It's then the post editing of that afterwards that can take time.
The stack is the first phase. I mean, once you've got the image, you then have to work with them. Like all images, they come out the camera, they're not ready to be seen. They need to be worked on. And with stacking, depending what you need to do to it, it can be take a day or it could take 10 minutes.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit then and tell us just a little bit in terms of how you got into taking pictures of slime molds.
All right. I mean, I have to say that I have a Nikon system. That's my main camera system. And I started doing things like fungi and that a few years ago, seriously. And I began to see photos of things that I couldn't see. And I started to try and do, you're talking about something that's maybe 1 or 2 millimeters high. And unless with the terms of Nikon, you have independent lenses that can magnify. But what you can't do is move the camera to change the focus point as you're building a stack, which presumably we'll explain later on. So you either have to have loads of kit in the field, like a motorized rail that actually moves the camera for you. Again, it's all weight. And then I came across the OM system, which straight out the box with the right lens and the touch of a button will do it for you, and you can see it all happening before your eyes. And the nice thing is the magnification is so good that something is sort of the size of a full stop you can now almost fill the screen with. And because of that, you get a huge image. You don't need to worry about difference between crop sensor, etc., because you just fill the screen. And I think if you can fill the screen with your image, you're not going to lose much detail. You're going to be able to see almost everything. And these things they are full of detail. You would not believe how much detail these things have.
Yeah, and we'll get to see that in your images in a little bit. So kind of what got you into slime molds though? So I know you were kind of into orchids when you're younger, and it kind of transitioned from that, didn't it?
Well, it's just I've always photographed stuff like nature. I do not like photographing people. Animals, I'll spend all day waiting for something or hours, but people, no, I can't. But the insect, the fungi side, I've always been fascinated by that. There's so many colors, shapes. If you go down to the fine stuff, you see all the different textures, structures. But then if you go even smaller, you begin to think, well, I can't see that. I can see it with a magnifying glass, but I can't get it onto a camera. Something 2 or 3 millimeters high on a Nikon system and a 1x lens, it's going to be in a corner of a frame. And you can't, to actually magnify it, even with extension tubes and that, you can only get about 1.5 times. And at the moment the current Nikon macro lens doesn't have the ability to take teleconverters, so you're stuck at a 1x.
Interesting. Okay, well, we'll go into kit a little bit more later on, but just give me a quick answer then on what's the most unusual slime mold you've encountered.
Wow.
Any particular one that stands out?
There are some I can't give. I've got names listed down. I've got to use a cheat sheet later on because I'm not very good at naming them. Even the experts struggle, so the names are very hard. But there's one that looks like a very small tree, and you find it on a leaf, and it's got a little stem and a little head, and that's about 2 millimeters tall.
Interesting.
I can probably find the name for you, but my Latin is not very good, I'm afraid.
Don't worry. I don't know how many people actually know a lot of Latin, but
okay. But
yes,
I'm just amazed by some of the colors you see. Some of the colors are vivid red, vivid oranges, yellows, and they almost glow. Some of the orange ones you come across, particularly if they're one kind looks like a small light bulb almost with a glass stem. It's got the color just almost sort of comes out and smacks you in the face.
All right, so let's move on to a little bit about equipment then, and kind of what we are here to talk about. So let's bring these slides back in. There we go. So this is one of your images, and as one of the first beautiful images we'll see, did you want us to talk us through this one a little bit in terms of what it actually is?
I could tell you what it is. It's a trichia species. So I don't know which one it is, but these are very tiny things, about 3 millimeters tall. You can see them. There'll be another slide later on where you see a whole log covered in white versions. I mean, it's just the whole log is covered. Then you can see them. Otherwise, you're looking for these on bits of logs and that, and you'll see sometimes they're bright orange, sometimes they're this color.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify, how big is that sort of?
Probably about 3 millimeters tall.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the bit it's growing on is a bit of wood.
Right. Okay.
So
we are talking. We are talking absolutely minuscule. Then we are like, okay.
You won't be able to see them with your eyes, obviously, but you need to magnify them to really see them.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people seem to be at the beginning kind of asking how do you find them, and we are actually going to go through that in a little bit later. So hold those questions, and we'll kind of move into that in a minute. So let's talk about equipment then. So as you already know, you're particularly for most things, you're a Nikon shooter. However, for this particular type of photography, you shoot OM. What was the kind of the main reason you came to OM to shoot this type of photography?
Because straight out the box with a 90mm lens, you can pick these images up straight away. Whereas with any other camera, you have to have other equipment. You have to have rails. You have to have independent lenses that magnify. Whereas the OM system is just there.
Yeah, it just does it.
You buy the camera, you buy the lens. You've basically got the kit.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at some proper equipment. So the first thing I want to bring up is the OM5. I always bring this to the camera for you guys to have a look at. And there it is in all its beauty. So OM5, for me, is a great learning tool for macro. It has some of the abilities to kind of go all the way in terms of its focus stacking and its bracketing. So with focus stacking, it can do up to 8 images, and you can change the differential of that. And then with the bracket, you can do up to 1,000 pictures. Along with the 5-axis image stabilization, if you pin it with the right lens, you then get up to 7.5 EVs in terms of stops of light extra. So it really does kind of, if you are really looking to learn macro and you want a small, lightweight body to do it, then it is a really good opportunity of a camera to do so, along with the autofocus capabilities of the normal ability of the camera also being very good. So if you even want to take out a camera that's and take it out on the field, but you need it to be kind of small and lightweight, then it makes a great macro camera for that as well. The other option is then the OM1. And to give you an idea, this now stacks up to 15 images. It will still focus bracket up to those that 1,000 images, or that 999. With the right lenses, it will then have image stabilization up to 8.5 stops of light. Has these 1,000 or over 1,000 AF points as well, so you can really kind of get to grips with that focusing system and make it as intricate as you want it to, along with the faster processing as well from the OM5 to this. So Glenn, why was this the camera of choice?
I tend to, if I buy anything, buy the best I can. This one is the camera that just stands head and shoulders.
Yeah,
it does all the images. It will do up to 1,000 on a stack. It's got a nice resolution. It seems to give nice when you make the image. It's a nice image. It's good to work with. Seems to retain a lot of detail. It's just a nice camera to use.
yes, yeah.
I'm saying more than that. It's just good at what it does.
Yes, yeah. Any comments from you, Craig, on this? So where would you say OM5 sits for you as a macro camera in particular?
Yeah, OM5 is great for macro. We had one guy in the comments, Dave in Portland, just asking what the CP button is. So when it comes to macro, so the CP button is basically our computational photography button. But if you use focus stacking, for example, you can turn it on and off, or focus bracketing, turn it on and off just with the switch of a button. So you could be out taking normal photography, but then you see something you want to jump to, and you can just flick the switch with the CP button. So the OM5, as Richard said, good as an entry level into macro. Pair it with one of either the 30 or the 60, it's great for macro. But obviously, if you're looking to do something like slime mold, you're probably going to want to use the 90mm on it anyway. So I'd personally go down the OM1 route for the reasons that Glenn has mentioned, basically. So, and I don't have a lot of time for doing stacks myself. As Glenn's mentioned, he's got stacks of stacks to be stacking. And so I quite like using the in-camera focus stacking as well. And with the OM1 and the OM3, you get your 15 images stacks instead of the 8. So there is obviously a reason. But if you're just looking to get into it, you're running a different system and you just want to try it out, then an OM5 Mark II is a great option as well.
Yeah, and in terms of size difference as well, like if you're traveling up a couple of mountains to go and find slime molds in woods and forests and stuff, there's still quite a big difference in terms of size and weight. So the 418 grams to the 599, all those grams are going to make a difference kind of walking around and trying to find that subject. So especially when you could end up like crawling on the floor, right? so all makes a difference. So in terms of bodies, the OM1 for macro is literally incredible. It will do absolutely everything for you. But that needs to be partnered off with a great lens to make that happen. So let's quickly talk about the 90mm then. So 90mm, what to say about the 90mm? It is literally an incredible lens. And that's pretty much all I need to say. So to give you an idea, straight out of the lens, you get a 2:1 ratio in terms of magnification. With the teleconverter in a minute, you can go a lot further than that. You're talking 7-blade apertures. It's got image stabilization, so you're going to get those kind of 7 stops of image stabilization with the camera. Its minimal focal distance is minuscule, and I'm sure kind of Glenn's images kind of give you an idea of that already. But let's just quickly talk about the image on screen. So Glenn, take us through the 90mm for you, why that lens out of the 3 macro lenses we have is great, but also how this particular image came about, if you can.
This image I found, I was walking in some woods and we found a bit of wood that had like multicolored dots on it. And when I picked it up and looked at it, these were the things that were growing on it.
Wow. Okay.
They are, you almost think they're not real.
Yeah, they're very kind of alien looking, aren't they?
They are. They have a strange name actually. The common name is a carnival candy slime.
Okay.
It really looks like I don't know, like a raspberry sherbet or a strawberry sherbet or something, but yeah. I mean, the 90mm macro lens is so sharp; it will just pick these things up. It makes life. It's just nice to use.
Yeah. And do you find that? And do you find the image stabilization really useful?
Most of my stuff is done on a tripod, so I'm not worried about stabilization. With this kind of stuff, you can't really have movement, because any movement, you just won't get an image.
Yeah.
You've got no room to play at all. You know, if there's any kind of strong wind or anything, as we'll come on to later, you know, it just messes up the stack. And the whole stack relies on every image you take in the stack being able to almost lay over identically. So there's no, any blurring will come from any movement from the camera or the subject's moving, or, you know, even something, if you're working at home and a car goes by or a lorry goes by outside, is enough to make an error in your image.
Wow.
You're almost working at the limits of what you can see. There's not much error. You have to be that precise. It's not always true. You can have what's called a little bit of wiggle room, as I say. You can get away with a little bit of movement, but you know, when you're down at this scale, a movement of something when you're multiplying 8 times is huge. When it's down at 1 times, it doesn't really matter. You've got more scope to have an error, but the higher magnification, the more precise you need to be.
Yeah.
And it's all about technique.
Yeah, I imagine you've developed you've had to develop your technique for a very, very long time to get it to this stage. It's not something that someone's just going to be able to get a lens, get a body, and just suddenly do, right?
Well, I think your camera system, you can do the 15 in stack, and you'll be able to get something like it straight away. If you put it on a tripod,
okay,
you may not get something as detailed as this because your stack won't cover all the depth of field, but you'll get something enough to see what you could get.
Okay, that makes me want to get out there and try and forage on the forest floor.
I have to hold my hands up. I've never used the in-camera stacking because I rely on what I see.
Yeah,
one of the beauties of your camera, you can see each frame as it's taken. You can actually walk yourself through the whole stacking process on the back of the camera.
Yeah. Okay. And just tell me a little bit more about this image. So obviously you found this kind of in the woods or wherever it was. Did you then kind of shoot that there and then, or did you then take that home? Or?
I picked it up and put it in I always carry plastic bags and plastic containers with me because it's just much easier to pick these things up and take them home. When you've got a controlled environment. I do it on my diner and table, so I shouldn't tell you that. But so I keep these things in boxes. I keep them damp. Often, I mean, some of this stuff I just kept outside in the patio in the log, and with the rain and that, the log is wet all the time, and you get different ones coming up. So you'll get a variety of. If you remember earlier, there were those black ones with like white stems. They were on the same log. They came a bit later on.
Oh wow! Okay.
So just because you see one kind of slime mold on a bit of stick, it doesn't mean there won't be others there.
Interesting.
So it's always, you know, if you find something that's really nice and you really like it and you're able to take it home, you may be in surprise. You may see other stuff growing out.
Yeah. Okay. So it's definitely, would you say, from your experience then, would it be easier just to take the subject home, or if you can take the subject of it in its natural environment, to do that instead?
I mean, when you're down this close, you have to light these things.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, we're going to talk about lighting later on, but it's easier to light stuff at home because you've got more control. But equally, the lighting I carry around, I can use in the field, and I often do. It's just a matter of where your subject is. If it's down the leaf litter, you've got to pick it up anyway and move it. So you might as well have you might as well take it home and use it. But if it's on the middle of a log, you can't just put that in the back of your car and take it home. So you're kind of stuck. It really depends on the size of the substrate it's growing on. I mean, sometimes they're on moss, sometimes they're on sticks, sometimes they're on logs, sometimes in the grass, and it depends where they are. And it's not always convenient to sort of get down with your nose in the mud trying to focus something, and spend half an hour laying down in the mud is not a favorite pastime of mine.
No,
I think I get more than enough mud on me when I'm doing these things, because you have to be down in the dirt. That's where they are.
Yeah. So we did have a question that just to come in. I think we have just answered it, but let's just answer again. So, yeah. So, how do you take them home?
So I carry some plastic bags with me, and I carry some little Tupperware type boxes. So boxes that seal. You have to be careful. These are fungi and spores and mould, so you need to be careful about when you open these things at home. Make sure it's well ventilated. You're not breathing them in. You just got to be careful. Same when you're out in the field. You don't want to be sort of sniffing these things up your nose.
No,
really
not.
be cautious about using them. Just look at them, study them, and then try and take photos. But I would just, I carry boxes home with me.
Yeah,
and I just keep them in boxes. I keep them sprayed with water so they are damp. But some of this was on a bit of stick about 6 inches long. I just left it outside in the rain.
Okay, makes sense.
Because it's wet, I mean, it will carry on decaying, which is what you want. So these things will appear.
It's good to know. And then just lastly, in terms of the equipment, how much do you use the teleconverter, Glenn?
A lot of the time. I have both the 1.4 and the 2, but I use the 2 because some of these things are so small and I want to fill the frame.
Yeah.
So you need to have as much magnification as you can.
Yeah. And just to confirm, in the image like we've got on here, is there any cropping, or is that literally the whole of the frame?
There'll be, I try and do minimal cropping if I can. I'd rather try and fill the frame. With your 20 megapixels, you haven't really got a lot of cropping room.
No. So are we talking like a 5-10% or something?
You can, I imagine, crop up to about 20%, but I wouldn't, I don't do that routinely. I try and keep it under 10.
Yeah.
So it's best to try and get it right in camera.
Yeah. So just to give everyone an idea of what the 2x teleconverter will do. So if you put it on the 90mm, that's going to kind of double that to 180mm. But when we then start talking about it into a full frame equivalent, we then double that again. So we're now talking about a 360mm macro on a full frame equivalent. But the magnification is also changes as well. So you now get to something like an 8:1 magnification, and that is just how close you can get, which is absolutely stunning. And that's how you start getting shots that are like on screen right now, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I stand to be corrected, but there's nothing else on the market that will do 8:1 magnification in a sealed, weather sealed system, basically. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the other bit I've probably forgotten to mention. Thank you, Craig. Is the weather sealing. So when you're normally going out to find these things, you are, like as we've said earlier, in the mud, right? You're potentially getting down low. You're getting in all the nitty gritty places of a wood or a forest or something. So your camera is going to get attacked by all the grime and everything else that you can imagine. So the fact that our cameras are weather sealed is a blessing in disguise, I'd imagine at that point. Have you got any examples, Glenn, of when you've really been in the mud to try and get a sample?
The trouble is when you're crawling around, your hands get so messy. So you're more liable to, if you don't have the camera in the mud, you're more liable to put it on there with your hands. So I always try and keep microfiber cloths and even sort of wipes just to make sure I keep it as clean as I can. I'd rather clean it off and let it set and dry, and which then is another problem to get off as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I because there most of the time I'm on a tripod. I'm not actually, the camera isn't really in the mud. The tripod's in the mud. So I do my best to keep it clear, but you could be in wet grass, you could be in wet foliage. Sometimes, as we have, in the days of old, we used to have rain. And you could be out doing this stuff in pouring rain. So the fact these cameras take so much of a beating weather-wise is a real bonus.
Yeah.
And
for all the Americans and everyone else watching all over the world, the UK hasn't had rain for like probably 8 weeks or so now. So we're feeling very dry over here in the UK currently.
We had rain this morning. We actually had rain.
Did we?
Yeah, we had rain in Norfolk. We had rain overnight.
Yeah.
It was quite heavy actually, but yeah, so we actually have at last had some rain.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So thank God for that. Okay. So let's just have a look at some comments before we move on. We've got Krish watching, which is great. Hey, Krish, hope you're doing all right. We will see you, and yes, we will mention your show later on. I know you're waiting for us to do that, so give us a second and we'll do it. Any particular questions that stand out initially about equipment, Craig, before we move away?
Kind of equipment, kind of process. So you might cover it later on, but we had Alien One Tube has asked if you use a remote to take the images to avoid any additional shake.
It depends. If you have a very solid tripod, I mean, I tend to, by the way I set the stacks up, I tend to use the touch screen in the back and just gently touch it. And because I'm setting the stack up in such a way that initially the first few frames are not part of, they're going to be blurred. So they're not part of what I want to keep. So the camera has time to settle. But if you really want to be true to it, then yes, you need a kind of remote.
Yeah. And then there was another one from, well, 2 questions from Stephen Hyde as well, who was actually at the bug park with us, Richard. So Stephen has asked, he's asked if you, I'm guessing you might come onto this, do you stack in RAW? And how many images do you use in a bracket sequence? If I'm ruining the presentation, then don't answer it and we'll get to it.
No, I can tell you. The stack is dependent on the size of your subject, which is why I don't use the 15 size, because one size doesn't fit all.
But in terms of answering the question, yes, RAW all the time.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't.
No, that's fine. And then one other's just come through from Macro Studio Pro. So they sound like they might know what they're doing. So they're asking which focus differential setting you use, or does that change based on your subject as well?
It's dependent on the subject. I mean, I have a lot of time for Macro Studio, as I'll mention at the end. So yeah, I'm talking to them quite a lot lately.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All right. So let's move on then. So this is where we hope everyone has a cup of tea or a coffee and a few biscuits and stuff, because this is where things get a little bit more technical. And this could be a bit of a long one to ensure that we go through everything as smoothly and as easy as possible to make this happen. So before I will always say, as always, there's no right or wrong in terms of how this makes this happen. This is kind of Glenn's show in terms of tell us how he does it. If you guys have a different way, that's fine, that's great. And kind of thank you for listening. If you want to input your feedback, that would be amazing, so we can all learn together. But essentially, this is how Glenn does his stuff, and that's what we're following today. So before we kind of go straight into settings, let's just kind of have a look to see what you would normally have to do. And I'm going to go straight to Glenn on this one. How many times did you have to use to carry that sort of kit around?
I have to say I didn't use the rails because I never had one. And on the right hand side, I've done that numerous times. I've done flash, I've done lighting, constant lighting, I've done reflectors, but when that looks like a Nikon with a 200mm macro lens, which I used to have, which is a fantastic lens, but it's one times. You just can't get, and that lens was driven by a mechanical driver. So if you didn't have the connection with the camera body, it was useless anyway.
Yes, yeah.
And all of these things fall down because apart from the little lens, which looks like a microscope slide on the left-hand side, the rest, they all require the camera to move in order to do the stack. So you always need a kind of rail. Or probably with the macro on the right-hand side, you're actually going to be turning the focus point on the lens, which I have done, which is a a very hit and miss, because trying to, one, not knock the camera and move it, and two, trying to remember whether you turned it quarter of a turn, half a turn each time, and whether you've gone all the way through the subject, whether you come back. It's a real, it can be done. I have done it, and you can get results, but it's not consistent.
Yeah.
The whole aim of the game is, for this thing, is to get consistent results. You spend a lot of time taking these things. You want to go home, and at the end of it, you have something it's worth looking at.
Yeah. And obviously all this sort of kit is really heavy and cumbersome, right? It's going to be hard work trying to get that to any location.
Well, the middle one, you need batteries as well. So not only have you got to carry that, you've got to carry a battery pack of some description as well.
Yeah, and just to confirm, we've just had a question about kind of the silver white box in the center image. What does that actually do?
That is the controller. That is, I think it's probably a stack shop or something like that. But these will actually set up your start and end points, and also the size of the jumps that they move the lens forward. So we'll come onto that later, I know, but you do a stack by moving it set amounts. And luckily for us, the OM does it for us. It calculates what we need to move. So we've set a start point, and we have an end point by manually saying stop. And the camera takes it. It knows that it has an F value. It knows the size. It knows which lens it's using. It works out the optimum size of each jump to make.
Yeah. So there essentially,
alter, but we'll tell that later on.
Yeah. So essentially, our cameras have that whole entire thought process in. So you no longer need one of those boxes, which is saving you weight and batteries and everything, like you said. So that's kind of where we were before OM brought in focus bracketing and focus stacking, and that sort of technology was available. So it's always a good idea to remember where we come from to where we are now, as it's quite a contrast of difference. But let's move on to quite a big topic, I think, and that is finding the mold. So the best way I would always describe this is, to give you an idea, is if we were walking through a forest and we had Glenn by our side, I'm sure he'd pick up something within 5 minutes. But most of the people watching this, including myself, would not be able to do that. So can you kind of give us an idea of how would you start to find this sort of stuff, Glenn?
This is a picture of a piece of wood about 2 foot long, and you can see it's covered in white blobs. Yeah. Each one of those blobs is about 3 millimeters high, and those each one's a slime mold. So you can get areas of a log or a bit of wood that's absolutely infested with these things, and at that time you'll be able to see them because they'll stand out like a sore thumb. Sometimes they'll be orange, sometimes they'll be yellow, sometimes they'll be white. But this is not normally how you find them. Some of these things are on the edge of the leaves and the leaf lettuce, all the sort of decaying leaf matter and stuff. And I was very fortunate. One of my friends, he was kind enough to show me how to do this. And for this, you need a torch, a very high-powered torch. And you go through the leaf lettuce, shining on these on the leaves with the torch. And what you'll see is normally in the leaf is slimy and not very interesting, but sometimes you'll see like it's got a covering of sand over it, and sometimes look at it closely with a magnifying glass, that is your slime molds. Or you'll see on the ends of a leaf, you'll see some little tiny spikes sticking out, and those again are slime molds. So the edge of oak leaves, holly leaves, beech leaves, you have to be down to see them. One of the things I would always carry is what they call a loop. So it's like a jeweler's loop. So one of these things that magnifies 10 times, but it has a light on it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be in areas that are very dark. You're in woodland most of the time, and there's not a lot of light there. So you need to have a magnifying device that you can see these things with, that has its own portable light. So that's one of the things I would always, and I've got an equipment list coming up. So my sort of toolbox, if you like, I would always take out with me.
Yeah, and we'll go through that in a minute. So how big does rain make a big difference when it comes to trying to find these sort of things?
Often after rain, if you go out, then these things kind of proliferate. They'll kind of show up. They like to have wet conditions.
And is that, are we talking hours or are we talking days?
If it rains overnight, they'll be out the next morning.
Okay.
They come out very quick. These are fruiting bodies of kind of like a slime. So these are like the mushrooms you see, of stuff you never see underground. You suddenly see a flower coming up, or you see a mushroom. These are fruiting bodies. That's what you see. Some stuff will be around for ages. Some won't be. Some will go over very quickly. It depends on where they are, how dry they are, what species they are. I'm not an expert in naming these things or knowing all the biology behind them. I just look for them. If I'm lucky enough to find them, I photograph them. So kind of an approach of you shoot first and ask questions later.
Yeah.
Shoot first, because these things can come and go in a blink of an eye. Literally, you can go back tomorrow and they'll be gone.
I was just about to ask how long they last, Glenn, but you've already answered it. So.
Again, it depends on what it is. Some of them you can find have been around for days or even weeks, but some of these things, they'll develop very quickly and they'll go over very quickly. You might get these ones lasting maybe a couple of days if you're lucky, and then they go to a kind of mush and they're gone.
Yeah. There's actually a great question just come up that's probably relevant right now. Do you prefer coniferous or deciduous woods to find them?
Most of my hunting at the moment has been done in ancient woodland, so they are deciduous. But curiously enough, a lot of this stuff is found around holly bushes.
Okay, interesting.
So I don't know why or what the biology is for it, but often if you find a holly bush with some different types of fungi in the leaf litter, you quite often will find some of these slime molds. But this thing was just sitting out in the open in the middle of a walk, beside the path almost.
Wow.
So they could be anywhere. I don't think there's an answer to give you to say, oh, you look here, you look there, because you just want to have a look. If you look in leaf litter in, roundabout sort of round holly bushes, round sort of old trees, if you look in areas got a lot of rotting wood, sort of old log piles are quite good areas. Bits of wood just on the ground that are completely saturated, the sort of stuff you pick up and it almost falls apart in your hand. Quite often there'll be stuff on it.
Okay.
And it's just getting your thing out and looking at your magnifying glass and sort of looking at it up and down. You do get some funny looks. You stand there looking at this bit of wood and everyone's looking at you as they've come past, but that's how you do it.
I've always I know how that feels. I've been there, I've done it. So let's talk about that toolbox you've been talking about then. So powerful torch, we've already kind of gone through that. Loop and lighting is obviously an absolute must, right?
Yes, so the loop must have a lighting. The one I have also has a UV lighting, because sometimes things show up differently under UV. And they'll actually fluoresce, so you can. It's quite interesting stuff the stuff does. Tweezers, because you don't want to handle these stuff too much. If you want to move stuff around to photograph it, the best way is your fingers are like sausages compared to these things. They just don't work. You need to have a way of paring down your fingers, and tweezers is what I would use. And I would use curved ones, so you can actually go in an angle, and you don't, they're kind of a 45-degree angle, and you don't need to go down. You've got the movement. Lighting, I use. I don't use flash, because that, without a lot of diffusing, it brings up hot spots and things and shadows, quite harsh shadows. So I tend to use constant lighting, either lighting panels, or I use some lighting that's on the end of swan necks. So they have a little bulb on the end that covers with a diffuser, and you can bend it almost anywhere. And of course, with that kind of lighting, you can see what shadows are there. You can see where you've got hot spots and things.
Yeah. So
often I have them on spikes. So if I put them in the ground, they're fixed, so I can then work with them that way. Clamps, obviously, to hold these things together or up in the air in a certain position. So I have various clamps. I have Wimberley clamps. Sometimes I have even just sort of little clothes pegs or something. Just something to hold a bit of stick in the air or something simple as that. And one of the most important things is a kneeling pad, because you're going to be kneeling down 99% of the time doing this stuff. And I'm afraid as you get older, your knees get less receptive to leaning on stones and other sticks that stick into you and thorns. And a kneeling pad takes it all.
Yeah. No.
And yeah, it's good to sit on as well.
Yeah, Glenn, sorry, one quick question. So Elanio Bro has asked, with regards to the UV lighting, I know you're not a pro with all the names or anything, but do you remember any which did show as fluorescent when you were looking at them? Have you got any on your list? Or
no, I haven't actually seen anything. It's just something that may be there,
so it's always worth just having it just in case.
Also, I mean, UV is a strange thing. Sometimes you'll see something, you know, I haven't done it, but you can see things you would never see before. I mean, things like some of the little insects that crawl around will light up.
Yeah.
You know, they could be quite fun to try and photograph. Some of the things like springtails and things like that, but again, they're quite mobile.
Yeah.
So that may be a case of where the 15 in camera stack might work better than actually trying to do a manual stack, because they're very quick. You know, your stacking thing can be done in a few seconds, and you've got more chance of it being still and doing it than if you're you know, and also your system is so quick. You know, you're stacking several, you know, tens of frames a second, depending on the shutter speed, of course. So yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other question I think that's relevant that also came from the same person. So when you collect them, do you try and propagate them at home as well?
If it's on a bit of wood, I either try and keep it in a sealed container and make sure it's very wet. But you often pick up with these bits of wood, you get beetles coming out, you get flies coming out, you get all kinds of things appearing. So you need to be careful. I mean, especially if you're using dung, you'll get dung beetles start appearing and trying to fly around your house, which is not always good. So you need to be very careful. But if it's a bit of stick, like about 4 or 5 inches long, I just leave it outside in the wet, because that's what it needs. And then just bring it in and prop it up and photograph it.
Yeah. Okay. So just to give you an idea, you've already convinced Stuart Wood to go and do some stuff. So hi, Stuart, as well for watching. So yeah, get out there and show us what you got with slime mold, Stuart. We're intrigued.
Your videos, Stuart, I've watched them.
It's good. All right, so let's go into a bit more about settings then. As always, we normally start with the mode dial. Glenn, where do you normally sit with the mode dial?
Manual.
Yep.
I don't use anything else.
Fine. But we were talking earlier, and you also use one of the custom modes, don't you?
I use the custom mode for when I've set the camera up. I use it as a backup. So if you're in the field or at home and you inadvertently make an alteration to a setting, and suddenly your camera doesn't do what you want it to do, going back to your custom mode will reload that setting, and it should get you back on track quickly. Otherwise, it could take you ages to work out what you've changed and how to change it back.
That's music to my ears. It's one of my biggest tips to customers is always to have. I even say all 4 custom set up to 4 things you normally do, but even if you're just using the camera for one thing, as you say, it's always going to be a reset. So as long as you don't overwrite that custom mode, it's the quickest way to get back to your normal setting.
I've seen people use, if they're doing fungi and they're doing birds, they would have C1 and C2 and then copies on C3 and C4.
Yeah. So you can quickly jump.
Overdo it. But, you know, I mean, today when I was getting ready for this, I had a look at my OM. and I couldn't get the bracketing to function. It would not function, and it did. And I'd have been playing with it, and it turned out that after setting the C1 several times, I'd altered something, and I wasn't now in manual focus, so it wouldn't function. But it took me a long time, whereas working that way, actually, after about 5 minutes, I worked out what was going on. But there's nothing worse than being out in the field and find you've got a subject in front of you that you might have taken ages to find, or you've been looking all day for it, and you found it, and now you can't actually do what you want to do because the camera won't function. So this is like a get out of jail free, if you like. This is your, if everything goes wrong, you can go back to one of these custom functions you have set up. You knew it worked at home, it will work out in the field.
Makes sense.
And hopefully you'll go home with a shot rather than sort of blue air because it didn't work.
All right, so let's move on to our standard quickfire round then. I know we'll have a detailed section of this in a minute, but let's just try and do a bit of a quick fire, and then we can go into the details. So shutter speeds, where do you normally stand with shutter speeds?
Right, so all of the way I work with is set up according to what's in front of me. So the lighting I have, how I've set things up. So basically I always try and work at 200 ISO because that's the base of the camera. That's probably the best you're going to get. The aperture, I tend to try and work around f11, f12, f14 because those are the edges of what you get diffusion. So they'll give you the greatest range of your slice of focus as you're moving through. You can go smaller, but then you'll need more images to your stack. And then, of course, the shutter is going to depend on what light you've got. So having a bright light on it is going to reduce the shutter speed. So I would never set out to say I'll use a aperture of f10 and then I always use a shutter speed of 1,000 seconds because you haven't got the light.
Yeah,
I mean, you need to put a spotlight on a thing to do that, because you're on. The other thing is, of course, I was just doing it before we came on. The maximum magnifications, that's with a 2x converter, 2x on the lens. The closest focusing distance from the front of the lens is about 5 centimeters. So in other words, you haven't got room to get the lens hood on because that's going to just like dwarf the thing. And your camera is going to be the shade. Your camera is going to your subject will not see the light. And so that's why you need a tripod. That's why you need a stable environment to not allow movement. So really the shutter speed is dependent on what you see in the back of the camera. How are you, because the good thing about these things in having a live view, when you look at the back of the camera, you can adjust the shutter speed so you can see the brightness, you can see the shadows, and if necessary, you can move the focus through your subject to see what's picking up, what's not picking up, and then before you start your sack, you've got everything ready. So you know what shutter speeds you've got, you know what the aperture you want, you've set the ISO, and that's all done in manual. Occasionally, I will go to aperture just to see what it might suggest the shutter speed to be, if I'm having trouble getting a subject, then at that point it will tell me that, I should be using 200 of the second or 50 of the second. Gives you a guide, but I don't actually do a stacking it. All my stacking is done in complete manual.
Interesting. Okay. Frames per second, obviously I know you just do a single because you're bracketing otherwise. So let's move on to the second set. So focusing type?
Probably CAF if I'm going to do it. So I've got constant focusing.
Okay. What about focusing?
I have it set so the back button will focus. So what I do is if I'm trying to do the front of the subject, it's sometimes handy just to push that button and get it in focus to see what you're looking at. Gives you a good starting point.
Yeah. What about focusing grid?
I would think probably single. I don't really worry about it too much.
Okay. Metering?
Again, probably center weighted. I don't really. It does. I look at what I'm doing. I look what's in front of me. I look to see what the back of the camera shows me. That is the thing you should go by, because no matter what you're metering, apart from, sometimes I go into aperture and gives me an idea. What you see in the back of the camera is what you're going to gauge how it comes out, because what you see is pretty true to what you get out. So you should use that, because that's what your image is going to finish up like.
Yeah. And in terms of computational modes, obviously it's focus bracketing. You don't particularly focus stack, and that's absolutely fine. So settings. So let's go into this in kind of a bit more detail then. So as you kind of said, your shutter speed is really just kind of the least of your priorities. That is just the whatever's going to happen in terms of light, right? And then your aperture is kind of the one you're really wanting to control.
Well, the aperture I tend to use 14. So this is on the edge of your diffusion. And for people that don't know, diffusion is where the light actually gets bent around the edges of the diaphragm, the aperture, the actual blades. At that point, your image starts to soften. Some people will do these stacking at sort of 3.5 f4, that kind of range, but the downside of that is, yes, it gives a lovely background because you've totally blurred anything out that's there, but you're having to do more and more stacks. Your image, instead of being 50 frames in a stack, you might be talking 150, 200, because they're so narrow in what your depth of field will do. You have to make up for it. I mean, sometimes it works very well. I've not played too much. I tend to do anywhere between f11 to f14. I'd rather have a slightly bigger slice and overlap the slice. And then, so when it's like stitching a panorama together, if you take a panorama and you have 10 shots across your whole field of view, each shot should overlap by anything from 50 to a third of the percent. So, and the more overlap you have, the better usually the end picture comes up. And the same with stacking, I think. The more the overlap, the more steady things are, the better the software can handle it. So it's really how you want to feel. If you are comfortable with doing sort of f4, f5.6, that kind of area, and you're worried about a background that's very messy, then yes, it will work, but it's a bit more work for your software to do, and you need to be even more precise how you do it. And there are other settings you need to use. You need to, which again, I think probably the next slide. So you need to do things like steps and stuff, which will come into, as I said, the depth of field I do to give a reasonably large slice of the whole depth of field, because at this kind of magnification, your actual depth of field is getting into fractions of millimeters. And if you're photographing something that's maybe 5 or 6 millimeters deep, now you begin to, now slicing it up like you're doing in a dissection, you don't see that. So the bigger the slice, the more you can see.
Yeah. Okay. So this question is probably a good one time to ask this now. So it's f14 with the 90mm and the 2x teleconverter?
Yes.
Okay. So we are talking very, very small, high magnifications.
I mean, if you happen to see in your final stacks that they're slightly soft, then maybe rein it back to about f11, f12.
Yeah.
You're just on the edge of, I think you're just on the edge. I think if you use f16, it's gone too far. You will see soft subject. No matter what you do, it won't be sharp.
Yeah. Okay. That's it's an interesting set of settings, I think, because it's quite different from if you were taking a picture of an insect or something like that and focus stacking or bracketing with that. You're going almost one step further from that.
Well, it's like trying to photograph a house versus a piece of paper, the edge of a paper. You really are going that different. You're an insect is a house compared to some of these things.
Yes.
And, it's very different. I mean, as I said before, I keep the ISO set to 200 because that's the base of the camera. And I always think the base of the camera is the best, for noise reduction, stuff like that you're going to get. White balance, I do keep it to auto, but if you really want to be careful about it, you set the white balance to, daylight or something. But, when you're using RAW, you have the ability to change that in software. If you're using flash, you would set it to that thing. I mean, some people, you actually use the flash setting as their setting anyway, because it's a very good daylight setting, if you like. I don't have a noise filter on because I don't want the camera doing any processing. I want the raw, I want it, as it comes out. Image stabilization, I leave that to auto, really. But you're on a tripod, so really stabilization doesn't come into it.
So you could turn it off if you really wanted to.
But, yes, you could. AF mode, I just leave usually manual focus, and subject detection is off. I mean, you don't want it going off looking for birds when you're trying to photograph something in front of you,
No, definitely not. All right. So let me just quickly talk about kind of the two different options you have then. So if you are looking to learn more about macro, then we would always talk about our focus stacking mode, which will take up to 15 shots, depending on the current models of cameras. So, for example, we said earlier the OM5 does 8, the OM1 does 15. And so for me, it's a great way of learning how to kind of focus stack and what that looks like. And also, if you're not much of an editor, you're not really too interested in editing, then it's another good way to do it. This thing can be great for insects and flowers and that sort of thing. I personally haven't tried using the focus stack feature for slime mold photography. Glenn, have you even tried it, attempted it?
A couple of times, and it wasn't a failure, but it just didn't have the it doesn't know. It knows where to start because you set it, but it doesn't know. It does 15 shots. It doesn't know where to end. It just does 15 shots.
Yeah, rather than just keep on going till when it's finished. So, yeah. So if you are looking to learn more about macro photography and maybe using it on slightly bigger subjects, then it's a great tool to learn with. So it's definitely helped me along the way. I'm sure it's helped Craig in the past as well. So it's a really unique feature to our cameras, and it's definitely worth paying a bit of attention to. But let's now talk more about focus bracketing. So our particular focus bracketing in camera will do up to 1,000 shots, or 999. You can then set your differential to go from 1 to 10. So that's, how big the gaps are, and how big the planes are. And it's quite a feature. And it's one of the biggest draws to our range of cameras. Is it something that you kind of use day in, day out, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions was about focus differential. I didn't pick that up, sorry. I set it to 2. I mean, in a slide coming up, I show you how these things work, but basically the lower the number, the more overlap you get. So if you had 3 boxes side by side, at 10 the boxes are spaced out, there's no overlap. And as you reduce the number, the boxes come together until they start to overlap each other, and that overlap is where you need. The number of shots is 999 because when you do a bracket and you start it off, you don't know how many images you're going to need to get to the area behind your subject. So what you want to do, the next slide I think shows it, you need to start your stack in front of your subject, and you'll be out of focus. And you need to end up, so when the stackers, the bracketing has moved all the way through your subject, you need the behind the subject to be out of focus as well. And those 2 points are quite critical. And if you limit the number of shots to say 100, and you need 150, you've run out. You've stuck halfway through your image. So that's why it's 999. The differential is dependent on how much overlap between the frames you want. Imagine you have a loaf of bread, and your eyes see the loaf of bread. When you look at a loaf of bread in the shop, you see the whole thing, but the camera can only see one slice. That's the amount of focus it can see. So the idea is you want the slice to be slightly overlapping the one before and the one behind. and that then slice moves all the way through the loaf. And when you come to software, the software glues it all back together, and you now see the whole loaf. And the differential there is the actual overlap of those slices. So there's two areas there. One is the actual depth of field, which is effectively the thickness of the slice. And the differential is the way those slices overlap each other. So if you start spacing that loaf out, you have holes in that loaf, and the software can't fill those holes in. Does that help people?
Yeah. I think we have got the diagrams a little bit later to work that out. So if anyone doesn't truly understand that just yet, we have got a bit more on that as we go.
The nice thing about this is that when you do your bracketing and you stop it, it automatically returns to the point at which you started focusing. So I would always do 2 to 3 stacks of an image, because things can go wrong, things don't work, the lighting changes, the cloud goes in, a car drives by, there'll always be errors. So I'd always, because you've got the thing in front of you, wasting a few frames on a card is better than trying to go back and do it, because you won't be able to do it.
Yeah,
I'd rather do several several stacks and go home and throw away 3 or 4 stacks just to get one good one. And for some reason, sometimes not all stacks are the same, no matter how careful you are setting up. Some come good, some not. I don't know why, but maybe some vibration somewhere, or that's how. So that's good. The charge thing on flash, if you use a flash gun, you need to have a flash gun that is capable of producing the rate of flash that takes up with every time you take a picture. So the recycling time needs to be very fast. And often the flashes will do this by reducing the power output of the flash. And there are ones that can do that and work quite well on the OM system. Okay.
Cool. So let's go into a bit more detail. So let's talk about kind of settings, techniques and processes. So first one, use a tripod. I think we've explained that clearly.
I mean, if you imagine you're going to move this thing around with your hand, imagine your elbow is your fixed point and you want to point at something. If you move your elbow a few degrees, look at the arc you're making. Okay, where your fingers are, you move your elbow an inch, your fingers are moving 5. That is the kind of demonstration you need when you're getting vibrations. And if you want to have an image that every image overlaps identically on top of one another, you can't do that if your subject's moving, if your tripod's moving or your camera's moving. So I always use a tripod. I tend to now, if I'm doing slime molds, have a 3-way tripod. So I have little geared mechanisms where I can move the camera in 3 axes, because it's quite difficult to move these things carefully. I tend to sometimes, especially at home, I have a manual rail that I can alter, so I can move my my camera slightly forward or slightly back, which is critical when you're setting up how to do the stacking. You can do it by moving the tripod a little and then it settles, so it can be done. I have, in the field, I wouldn't bother carrying a manual rail with me, because it's another thing to wear around, and it's quite, you're talking a thing about 8 inches long, it's quite fiddly to use, but I tend to just move the tripod a little bit, and then you look at the back of the camera. You always look where your focus points are on the camera. So constant light, I use either, as I say, light panels, which are well diffused, or I use a constant light that's on the end, like a swan neck type of thing. And so the lights are either rested on on the log, on the ground, or sometimes I put them on spikes and drive them into the ground so they don't roll around. So again, you don't want any movement of anything, wind, someone sneezing, anything like that will cause ripples in the final software, which you can't correct, not easily, without a lot of work. So as I say, any of those things above the image will not be put together well in software. I have done stuff with orchids where, on a windy day, it's what it is. You're there. You have to make the best of it. You can get an image out, but it's a lot of work. As I say, some of them would take me 2 days to do. because you're actually trying to match up an image that's moved with an image that's not, and it's not easy.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
I mean, I don't have any hair left to pull out, so I'm really in trouble.
Okay, so let's go now into the steps into taking the actual stack itself. I know you've kind of already explained it once, but let's just go through it in a bit more detail. And Craig's decided to join us again, so let's all explain it for Craig. We'll make everyone stop and wait for Craig to learn it all over again, shall we? So take us through taking the stack then, Glenn.
Right, if I could start with the diagrams first. So the top one is what I was saying about the loaf of bread and your overlap. So the slices are what the camera sees, and your overlap is what the camera does in moving the thing through the thing. So that will be put back together to get your original loaf. The bottom diagram is this critical point where your focusing starts before your subject and it ends after your subject. And that's why it's quite good to have it on a manual setting where you can start and stop the frames. Because you know, when I do it on a Nikon, I have to guess how many frames are going to be working. And also with the Nikon, with the OM system, when you're looking at the back of the camera, when it's doing the bracketing, you see each frame. You can see the focusing move through your subject. The Nikon, it's black. So to give you an example, the other day I was photographing a beetle lying on the ground in the middle of a sand pit almost, and I wanted to do a stack of a beetle. And when I press the button, I'm holding the camera down to the ground so it doesn't move. But once I've pressed the stack to start it, I can't see the back of the camera. I'm having to watch over the camera to make sure I don't move and the beetle doesn't clear off. Now with the OM system, you would see what the camera's seeing, which is a huge advantage. So let's go through it. So I set everything to manual focus. So when you set up your lens, you have the ability of the 90mm lens to set it at 1 times or 2 times. And you do that by pulling what's called the clutch, which is the front collar. You pull it towards the camera and it then exposes your magnification scale. So to start off with, I would set that as 2. And then you have to push the collar back. If you don't push the collar back, the bracketing can't happen. All right. So
let me just try and show that if I can. I don't know if I've got enough light here, but so if you pull the collar back, you'll see a load of numbers. Yeah, and then you're looking for the times 2.
Yeah.
I feel like I should have a camera with a 90mm on it, but I haven't got one to hand. I've got an 8mm on mine.
So then when you've done that, I would try and set your focusing to be as close to the camera as you can. So look at something and bring it into focus and bring it towards you as much as you can. At that point, you're the closest focus. So that means you have the largest magnification you can have. So you fill the frame as much as you can. So at this point, with the camera on a very sturdy tripod or some sort of support, I now move the camera forward until I can see the front of my subject. And that way you'll see how much of your subject is in the frame, the composition. You'll be able to see, you know, whether it's lighting properly or how you've done it. So now when you've got that point, you have to move the camera away from your subject slowly. And you just move it back a few millimeters, half a centimeter, as little as you can. But your subject now is out of focus. So now your subject is at your start point in the diagram with the orchid. So when you've done that, I tend to, I have a button on the camera set. I set that as my recording button. I have it set so that switches on and off the focus bracketing. But I also have the button on the lens as a lens function button as well, which I've set to as well. And what that does is it switches it on and off. So when it's on, it's ready to start. So what I tend to do is I very carefully, I've got the touch screen as my shutter, and I very carefully just touch it so as not to push the camera all over the place. And also because you're starting your stack in front of your subject, any kind of vibration you set on your camera by touching it, it has time to settle down before it starts actually getting into your frame of your subject. So everything should be settled down. And you then watch on the end of your camera, you watch on the camera, you actually see your subject go in focus. You see the focus move through the whole subject until the other end, if you like, the back of your orchid here is now blurred. And that's the point you then touch the frame again. Now at that point, your camera then resets the focusing to where you started. So you've no need to worry about, oh, I need to move back to where I started. It's already done it for you. But at this point, I would also then carefully put my hand over the front of the lens and take 2 frames. So these I call black frames. And you're going to say, what the hell is he doing? Well, method in my madness. When you do, say you do 20 or 30 stacks and you get home and load them onto your computer, you'll end up with a film strip of hundreds of frames. And how are you going to tell where your stacks start and where your stacks stop? What I like to do is I like to have a folder for each stack, so it is separated out. So the 2 black frames give me a break visually. I can say, oh yeah, there's a black frame, right? That image, that's sort of 10, 20, 40, 50, whatever I need. They all go into folder number 1. Then I look down, right, the next one, folder number 2. So you do it that way. And also, if you know you've had a bad stack, like suddenly the light's gone in if you're in the woods, or the sun comes out and everything changes light levels, I would do, say, 4 or 5 black frames. I know that stack before that, I don't even bother loading. I just ignore it. So it's a quick way of sorting through your software. I mean, you know, it is crucial. You have to get the focusing to be before and after your image. If you don't have those frames, you may be cutting out your image you need because you don't have the choice.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Does that confuse people or what? I don't know.
No.
Probably going berserk, are they?
No. I think everyone's quietly taking it all in. So
I've bored them. They've all gone to sleep.
No, you're good. It's quite a lot to take in terms of stacking. Isn't something you just pick up and go on with. You do. It does take a bit of time to understand and to get it right, like you're saying. That does take a little bit of learning to get used to. So once you've got your stack, you need to do something with it, right? Because obviously it won't stack those images in camera. So we're not going to go down the whole entire post editing route, okay? Because that's another 3 hours that all of us don't have this evening. So we're going to just kind of go through the very basics of what you do. So just quickly then go through post editing for us then, Glenn.
Yeah, one of the things I would do when I've loaded all my frames, and I've as I mentioned, I then divvy them all up into individual folders. So I don't have any, you know, I don't pick half a frame from here and half, you know, they're all separate. I tend to convert all my frames into DNG. And I do that for a reason that most software can use a native format, but they all convert it in different ways. Mm-hmm. So if you have a software program, it's not like a Photoshop. They will give you different colors, different things. Whereas DNG is like a basic, it's a raw file that everything can see. And it also means that you've still got the ability to keep all the information your camera so kindly takes. You're not losing it. And at the end of it, when I've done my stacking, I make it another DNG file. And that's what I then do my further processing on. So it's like being able to use a raw file, but a universal raw file, if you like. So the one things I do is, one, I load all my frames and I divvy them up according to my black spots and put them into folders. I then load each set into particularly probably Photoshop first, or Camera Raw, I think I would use. And I just make sure that all the files have the chromatic aberrations and the lens corrections done. So any kind of distortion because the frame, the camera's looking through the the lens or whatever, or any kind of fringing color or anything like that caused by things is kindly removed. Once I've done that, you need to go through the if you have 100 frames, you need to look at them in your Camera Raw software to see what point your first frame is in focus. So remember, we initially took a load of frames before we started that were in blur and a load at the end. You need to now find the bit in the middle. So you need to go through your frames, and just at the point the first thing is in focus, you come back a couple of frames. So the first couple of blurred frames before it's really in focus, and again at the end, the last couple of frames. So you've got that buffer again. But when you stack it, those don't matter because the software will be looking for the bits that are in focus. It just makes sure that if you haven't seen something that should have been in focus, you haven't missed. It's very easy when you're dealing this magnification to see an edge of something that you haven't noticed should be in focus, and it should have been there and it's not. There's nothing more frustrating than doing the stack and you think, well, why isn't that in focus? Where's that gone to? And if you don't have that initially in the frame the collection of frames you've made, you can't go back and redo the stack. So it's quite important to look through the whole thing. Once you've done the stacking software, most of them, there's a few I use, you'd make the stack and you end up with a single file where all the bits are in focus from each frame is now, if you like, flattened into one image. And that's the image you now take into do anything like Photoshop or whatever software you happen to do your raw for. You set your white points, dark points, brightness, lightness, contrast, and that's where you go. That's a very simplified way.
Yeah. Okay. We forgot to mention one thing that someone has highlighted, that when you want to do your black frames, just make sure you turn the focus stacking off, because otherwise you're going to get a lot of black frames.
Correct. Well, I always the thing is, if you have it set on the back of the frame like that, you'll see the little symbol come up to say focus bracketing is working, and you can't take, as you point out, you cannot take single frames in that way. Yeah. So I always, when I finish the stack, I always switch it off, which is why I have it on a separate button.
Got to create that habit to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of this stuff is once you've decided how to do a stack, it's just repetition. All that changes your subject.
Yeah.
So you want to be as boring as you possibly can. You do A to B to C to D, and you do that every time. And if you get it right, you should get stacks out.
Okay. So let's talk software then. There's lots of different softwares out there that will stack your images for you. Is there some that you would recommend, some that are more user-friendly than others?
Okay, so most people start off in Photoshop. That will do it, but it's not the best. Photoshop tends to be a jack of all trades. It does things some very well, but you need to go to specialist software. There are a couple I've tried. There's Zareen Stacker, which I couldn't get on with at all. The one I do use most of the time now is Helicon Focus. But there is a new one in the market called Macro Studio, which you had a question from as well.
Yeah.
And they are proving to be very good. They're very simple, and they're evolving all the time. And I think they are very good. If you want to just load stacks and you want to get an image out, they are very good at it.
Interesting. So make sure everyone
software, I would think. And as I mentioned, I'm talking to the guy who actually does the software, and he's very amenable. He's very helpful. His name's Ryan. He's very good, and I think the software is going to be very good in the future. It's very good now, but it's improving all the time.
Okay, so
and this is
interesting.
It's just new software on the market.
Yeah, so and obviously we can just search them up, I imagine, on Google or something, and find that. And okay, well, everyone, when you get a chance, go and have a look at that, and we'll give it a test in the OM community and see just how well it copes.
So, I mean, I would say from the ones I've looked at the moment, Macro Studio is proven to be a very straight out of the box, very good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to know. All right, so that is the end of the technical bit, and obviously there was a lot to take in.
There was one more question, sorry, quickly. This is Jugstop has just asked, are you using background cards to get colours in the background, or are you using natural?
I have bought some background cards. I was using a cover of a magazine that kind of went from green to yellow.
Okay.
I actually made I scanned it in and made a large format print and made that, but I actually bought some cards. I recently bought to do more stuff about for doing insects with this system. I've bought one of these a really powerful flash which can do the fast recycling, and I've also bought a diffuser that goes over the top of the flash. And the same company sells you a set of these cards, so they have in the background, but you don't need to use them. You can use, if you're in the field, a leaf, green leaf, brown leaf. Quite often the lighting, because of where you are and you've lit the subject, the lighting goes sort of dark anyway. The backgrounds are kind of, they're blurry. So this one here now, I would have had a background, but because of how the subject is, actually what I'm seeing is more bits of wood behind it. So the background, if you get it right, is quite blurred anyway. In fact, if you look on the front one, you can see me out in the field actually photographing it. Can you see the reflection?
Yeah.
In the highlight, yeah.
So that's actually me. So you have to be careful what you get in these reflections. So that shows you that was taken outside, not indoors.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, with a flash, of course, you're going to pick up things like that. So that would have been done with lighting, the swan necks probably.
Yeah. So this particular image is awesome, by the way. I love the fact that you can kind of see the sliminess of it, but then obviously you have these big bright orange balls of whatever it is. But
what I was going to say earlier about, if you come to remember that log had all the white things on it, you'll often see logs that have this on it, and they just glow. I mean, they when they happen en masse, there's something to be seen. It almost takes your breath away.
Okay.
And in fact, I often sit there and looked at it and thought, well, how do I photograph it?
Yeah. So what makes slime mold such an interesting challenge for you then?
One of the things I really like is the fact that you can't normally see these. You take a leaf to something, I look at the slime mold and I go, what are you talking about? But when you get a photograph like some of this stuff now, and somebody can see something they can't normally see, you almost feel a sense of achievement. You've been able to photograph it and get something out that is really astounding just for yourself from your own point of view, and yet alone somebody to look at and go, what the hell is that? Where did you find that? How did you get that? It's that kind of, it's like being a kid again. You show somebody in a sweet shop and they're going, what? And a good image, it has that effect.
Yes.
And
yeah, definitely this image.
It is a showstopper.
Yeah.
And my role or my job, if you like, is having found these things, is to communicate and show people what they're missing. Because this is not something you're going to go down the road and go by the curb and go, oh, look at that.
Well, that's true.
Two aspects to this. One is finding them. Secondly, when you found it, how do you get that photograph? How do you make it look good? And careful lighting, careful composition, making sure you do your stacking right, and it will just turn up.
Which leads me on to a great next question, actually. So out of some of the stuff I have seen from the slime molds before, your images are very different. And the one reason I say that is because you've composed them very, very well. Is that something that you've learned over time to do, or is it something you've just had a natural eye for?
I spent a lot of time photographing different, right down from animals, birds, right down to this kind of thing. The size is immense, the difference in sizes. And part of any photograph is you're drummed into it, composition. And that applies to something you can't see, to whether you place a bird in a frame. It doesn't matter. It's what you see in front of you is the key thing. And if you can put something like this in a nice sort of surrounding and a nice position, it has far more effect than if you've cut half a thing in, you're missing half those two together because you've made the wrong framing, or it's slightly up in the air. It all makes it. It's like when you meet people, that first couple of seconds, the initial impression is what you take home. You can't unsee something, and if you get it right and you show something that you really like, the chances are somebody's going to like as well. And that initial impression is something I think that stays with people. I think it's something you found, Richard, when I came along and sort of, oh, what's this guy going to show me now? Oh my God, what has he got? And your reaction was like, what are you showing me?
Yep.
And you did that. How? That was your
exactly
reaction.
That. Yep.
It's not an understatement. So your eyes were almost on stalks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that blew me away was the composition of your images as well. So, like, one, it's the subject matter in itself, but how you've composed this stuff and again, we're talking millimeters of difference, right? So even on this particular image, if you moved a few millimeters up, down, left or right, this whole entire image would have a very different composition. So it's about how you've done that, which intrigues me.
I mean, also when you photograph these things, the composition is not final. There has to be a little bit of cropping, because to actually get these things, you're moving bits of wood, you're moving bits of leaves, you're moving a camera. All those things are, immense to move fractions of a centimeter.
Yeah.
And so when you have these rails or these sort of freeway heads, they help get them in a good position. But I think you also need that little bit of cropping so probably photograph is 95% as I did it, but then the final thing is when you get the final stack, it always comes out different, I think, to what you see in front of you. And I don't mean different as it's different color, different shape. It always looks different in a camera to what you see in real life, I think.
Yeah, well, that's a great explanation. So what we're going to do now is throw you guys some inspiration. I'm going to throw Glenn the slides, and we're going to go through I've given him 6 images to play with today rather than 5. He's the only person I've gone, I liked your imagery so much that I'm going to give you a chance to show off 6 images for everyone. So
the names, I've tried to get names for these, but even the experts, as I know, struggle with them. So I'm going to try and do my best. So this is called a trachea, is the name of the slime mold, but I don't know which species. They're trying to look on. You're going to ask, how do I name these things? Well, if you go on the internet, there are several really good sites. Some are websites, some are. Just look up slime molds and you'll see the amount of images that pop up.
Yeah.
And from there, you'll be able to go to websites that list them specifically. There are some really good websites by some individuals that are run for fungi clubs that actually they have very good images for these things. There are some books, but I think just enjoy them. Don't, my initial phrase was, shoot first and ask questions later. Some don't worry about what it's called, just enjoy it.
Exactly. So let's have a look at your 6 images then, and give us a chance to be inspired by you. So let's go to the first one. Talk to us about this particular image.
All right, so this is one of these things that I said there were like stalks on the edge of a leaf. So if I remember right, this is an oak leaf. So you begin to get the scale of these things now. These things, again, are only about 2 millimeters high, maybe 3 at the most. I probably have names. Sorry, I have to use my crib sheet because I can't remember these things.
That's all right.
This one is Diddy. I can't pronounce. It's spelled Didymium, and then it's Nigripes. I believe that's the correct thing. And again, the background, that would have been that magazine cover I was telling you about. So it's just literally a bit of paper. I've lit it with a couple of these swan net lights. So they're more like very diffuse spotlights that you can put in, they're very flexible. And of course the leaf would have been propped up in a clamp probably. And that's how it's done.
Yeah, and these look like they are literally growing on the edge of a leaf, right? They're not on the top, they're not on the bottom, they are literally on the edge.
But it gives you, if you imagine an oak leaf and you turn the leaf on the side, this is what you're seeing. So you can see all the veins of the leaves, you can see the structure. This is how small you're talking. I mean, I think people don't realize how small these things are, how, you're looking into a world that you very rarely can see with your naked eye. You can see there's something there, but you can't see what it is. And the thing I find is when you start to see these things, the detail, the structure that appears, you wouldn't imagine just a little stick with a lollipop on top looks like that.
No.
And that's part of the charm of showing, it's being able to show people what these things are.
They look a bit like those mushrooms you used to get at the sweet shop, like with the I like the one on the left where it's two kind of conjoined as well. It's a nice image.
But these the tops then are where the spores they'll crack eventually and you'll have the spores come out.
Okay.
So these at the moment, they're not really what they are fruiting bodies, but they're not releasing the spores.
So the health and safety notice on that is don't go out to go and find and eat these, and also don't eat a leaf. All right, it's not a good idea. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Oh wow.
Okay, this one is Hermatrachea, and basically what this starts out as, if you can imagine, the base of it is like a brown like cup, so that is what would actually encapsulate all that what I call candy floss. So what happens when they first come out, you have this thing like a brown casing, and the brown casing will gradually peel away and crack, and you get this like candy floss. At this point, this is where the spores are coming out.
Wow. And what's the kind of the blueness on the base? What is that?
It's just the reaction of the light on the surface of the bit of wood.
Okay.
And even if you can see actually on the bit of wood, you can see there are even smaller structures.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe one day we'll make a lens to get those for you as well.
Well, I think it's probably not maximum magnification to fill these things. When you do the magnification stuff, you want to set the magnification so it fills the screen. So you're going to be going from 2 times, 1 times. When I set it up and say you set it to maximum, so you can see how big your image is in the screen, and you start adjusting magnification so your image fills your screen. So something like this will be maybe 3 millimeters, maybe 4 millimeters tall. So you could see this by eye.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Let's move on to the next one.
This is not actually a slime mold. I have to hold my hand up. This is something called a dung cannon. And they are found, as it says, on dungs. And they're called cannons because this little black cap, that will explode. The bit below it will just go off like a rocket, and it fires that black cap, which is probably a millimeter or so across, 2 meters. And it does that because it relies on the animal, like a horse or a cow, to eat that black bit again to start the whole process. And you can actually grow these at home if you really want to. And I did it in this heat wave. I picked up some fresh horse dung, and I thought, well, just for fun, I'll see if it will grow any time of the year. And I grew them in the heat wave, and it was 35 degrees. So they will grow any time of the year. But the thing is, these things can be about 1 centimeter tall, but I love the structure, like the glass and the dew and stuff.
Yeah, the see-throughness of it is amazing, and how you've even managed to focus on that, you've allowed the focus stack to go through that is amazing.
Well, again,
I don't know how you've done
that being regimented thing, when you start, you find your subject, you pull the camera slightly away from it, and you then watch the back of the camera to see your focusing move through your subject.
Yeah.
And those that, you know, that area again where you have before and after out of focus, it's so critical to getting a good stack.
It's a really impressive shot. It's amazing. Next one.
Okay, so a couple of slides ago we had that sort of like candy floss stuff.
Yeah.
The base of this is that candy floss stuff. It's now got something all over it. It could be another mold or whatever it is. But what you have on top now are actually tiny fungi growing on the mold. So these things are actually a species called Stabelia. And they're, you know, a couple of millimeters high again. But again, you know, unless you can magnify your image, you don't see this kind of behavior. You don't see the detail. So even though you've got very small slime mold, there's even something smaller growing on the slime mold. I just find when I first had it, I said to my friend, there's something wrong with my slime mold. It's got these white bits low. He said, oh, no. He said, it's actually a fungi growing on the slime mold.
Wow. It's amazing what nature does on that, isn't it? It's crazy.
Well, it seems there's always going to be something smaller.
Yes.
It's just whether we can see it.
Absolutely. Let's move to our next image.
Okay. This one is a Didyminium again. Another form of that one was on the oak leaf. So again, this is growing on the flat of the oak leaf. But you can see all the kind of I don't know whether these structures like the cobwebs are part of the slime mold or not. I have no idea. But it's just, you know, again, being able to see something so detailed, so small, and relatively easy with this camera system is just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you've done a brilliant job making a camera that's capable of doing this.
It's true. That's very true. And just how hard is that to see in kind of with your normal eyes? Like,
you could see it on a leaf surface. I mean, these are probably again 2 or 3 millimeters high. You would see there's something there, but you definitely would not see the detail.
Okay.
You know, these sort of tubule structures on the flat of the leaf and the sort of cobwebby things, you wouldn't know they're there.
No.
You need the lighting. You need to be able to, you know, magnify it to see it again.
Yeah. All right. Shall we go to what I would say was my favorite image? So this is the 6th image, and this is why we had to put it in. This one. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. And now you're looking along the edge of the leaf. So the edge of the leaf is that ripple going along.
Yeah.
These now are growing on the surface of the leaf. And they're sticking up. So when you pull the leaf out the ground with your torch and you're looking at it, you can see there's these little spikes. You can see those. But you need you need your little jeweler's loop thing to see them. And then when you put them in front of a camera, I mean, that's not a magnification. I've done that because I wanted to get the whole range. And this is what I meant about when you set up your initial image. You need to sort of work out how much you want to magnify a thing, how much you want to show. So you play with the magnification so your image fits in your frame. You know, you could magnify that more and more and you would just end up with 1 or 2 of those stalks. But I think, you know, when you have a whole range like this and the fact they're nearly all in the same line, it makes a nice composition. And the fact you've got that kind of a diagonal, people seem to like these diagonals. You know, if you do a landscape, they always look for triangles, they always look for leading lines. Well, the edge of the leaf is becoming your leading line. And your eye naturally walks along it and you think, hang on a minute, where am I going? What am I, you know? And there's something with these images, the more you look at them, the more you see.
Yeah, I imagine you go back to your images fairly regularly and go, I didn't notice that before. I didn't notice that.
Because I have so many to do of, you know, different size images, you know, from orchids to whatever. when I'm showing people, I actually, I didn't realize that was there. You almost look at them as though you're fresh. You don't realize until you start showing to people what you've actually done.
Yeah.
This one's got. Sorry, this one's got a lot of depth on it as well, because there's the front mold to the back one, there's a lot of depth on it, and where there's the kind of the two overlapping, that's to me is what draws the eye in, where they're overlapping. It's really nice.
That image you're at match, the part of the light is under the leaf, so you can see the underneath. Yeah. But if you look down in sort of the one that's in the dip, the front of the leaf, if you were just to set up on all of those little sort of slime molds along it, you would ignore that. This is how critical to me, when you have your image is blurred when you first start off, and you go back and you look through the frames when you've taken them all, and you try and pick out the nearest thing in focus. And sometimes, it's quite hard to pick that out. You've got to look at it, you've got to enlarge your image on the screen and see actually what is in focus. And the nice thing about stacking software is, provide you've got something that's blurred in front of your whole subject, it doesn't matter, because the software will pick that point out for you. But the point is, you need to have it in there. If you started your focus at the edge of that leaf where it drops down like a little horseshoe, you've lost that image. Because you haven't included it. You need to have your image start before that. That's why it's critical to have your focus point well before your image starts. And then again, you make a selection before you put it in your software of what bits you want in focus. And again, I would have selected a frame that very front edge would have been well out of focus, because the software won't pick it up. The software will only pick up the bits of the frame that are actually in focus. I understand a little bit how it does it, but it's too complicated to really, it is complicated, but it does a very good job. And that's why I think you need specialist software, because they're designed to pick up these focus bits within the image, and they're the bits so these things, when you sit them in a stack, they're in layers. So that's the crucial thing. They will have a stack from the front to the back, and each frame is its own layer. So if you have an image that's got 100 images in it that makes up the stack, you have 100 layers. So you need to have a computer with a bit of, gumph to it. You don't want something that's just going to sort of only run Word or whatever. It won't do it. You need to have a computer that's capable of dealing with sort of a bit of hard work. And of course, a decent graphics card. You need to be able to have something that's going to be able to do all the computations and things, and are working with it. But when you work it, and then what you end up with is an image that's then all the bits now are put together, so you see a flat image. But because of the way you stacked it, your image is not flat, it looks 3D. And that's one of the beauties of doing the stacking. You can now see, if you remember my early example with a loaf of bread, you see the whole loaf of bread, but you now see that in your image. But if you took a single photo, you then have to decide which part of your loaf is in focus and how much is in focus, because I can only do it with depth of field so much, depending on the aperture. So stacking gets round it. Stacking allows you to do several things. It allows you to blur the background completely out, so it isolates your subject. It allows you to see things you wouldn't normally see, and it ends up with an image that you're going, wow. I think that's all I can say. And the reason I do all this is what you've just seen on the screen.
Yeah, that is a wow image, isn't it? So when you've shown me that was just a blow your mind image. It's just how crazy that is.
I'm always impressed by the structure on these things. How what are they doing? How do they how do they make it, and why they're doing it?
Yeah, that's true. That is very, very true.
If you look online, you're going to see a far more variety of these things. These are only a very small selection of what I've been shown or found. There's a lot more out there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Glenn, thank you for inspiring us with some amazing images. We've still got some more images as we move through the last stages of this show. I'm conscious we've got about kind of 10 to 15 minutes left, and we've probably got a lot of questions to answer. So anyone who's got any questions, make sure to get them in the comments now whilst we have a chance. If you want to leave some feedback for Glenn as well, as he's not on social media or anything like that. So now's a really good time to chat with him and give him some feedback. That'll be amazing. Whilst you guys do that, I will go through some of the updates. Again, another crazy image from you, Glenn. I absolutely love it. But let's go through these system updates whilst you guys get some questions together. So let's talk about events then. We have a lot of events going on in the UK at the moment. It's very, very heavy to the point where if you really want to see myself and Craig doing our thing, you'll be able to see us at the Welsh Camera and Optics Show in Carmarthen. That is Friday and Saturday, if I remember right. I've already lost in the week. Yeah. So we'll hopefully have some macro stuff there to show off as well. I believe we've got, is Stuart Woods doing a workshop for us?
Yeah, we've got Stuart Woods there both days. So yeah, there'll be plenty of opportunities to have a go with some macros. So.
Perfect. And obviously Chris, who works at Command&Cameras, is hosting the whole thing. So thank you for him to having us. But yeah, if you want to come us down and see us play with the kit that Glenn essentially uses, we will have that set up ready to go. I can't guarantee we'll have any slime mods, though. I don't think I'm going to get around to running around in the woods and getting horribly mucky, I'm afraid. But you never know, we might have some flowers or something, I suppose. So yeah, definitely come and see us at that if you can. Then we've got a lot of kind of other store days. We've got the LC photo show, and we've got a lot of stuff with Jessup's Academy as well. So if you want to do some wildlife stuff and learn how to photograph wildlife, then they're really, really useful to go to as well. We're also doing urban skateboarding back in Bristol again. Be great to get on that if you're interested in anything fast motion and you want to learn more about pro capture, or you want to see on the DOM3 and you haven't had a chance to play with that, or you want to play with prime lenses, then that's also a really good thing to get involved with. Then I've decided to give you a little bit of a teaser on some of the macro days we actually have in stores and some macro events we have available at the moment. So starting in September, we go quite heavy into macro. So you'll see me and Craig in store. These are currently just the few that I'm doing. So you'll see me in Gloucester, York, Leeds, Shrewsbury, Nottingham. You'll also see a butterfly experience and bug park, which me and Craig did just over a month ago now, something like that, which was absolutely amazing. If you want to be able to take pictures of any insects you can imagine, that is the one to get on board with. So make sure you come and join us on that. And then I thought I'd just show you some more images from Glenn, just to give you a bit of a teaser of some of the stuff he does. And they are some more phenomenal images. And me and Glenn had a chat a few months ago, and we went, it'd be great to do an online talk. And that's what we're doing. Happy days. But Glenn, we also had a bit of a chat about doing a workshop on slime molds in particular, didn't we? And we've thought about it, and we tried and worked it out and tried making it happen. And to announce it today, we're just going to tell you to watch this space. It's definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And just make sure you keep up to date with the OM Systems event page, because we will announce the date and you can book on the date in a few weeks time or a few days time when we get it all online and get the final dates prepped. But then you'll be able to spend a whole kind of a few hours with me and Glenn, hopefully some slime mold examples if it starts raining prolifically and we get something. And Glenn will then be able to take you through it in small groups and take you through the whole idea of stacking, just as we've gone through today. So make sure you keep an eye open for that and really get involved, because that would be absolutely amazing. And you get to meet the master at work. So it'd be amazing if you can get involved in that. From there, just to remind you guys, OM Talks, we do it every month. Craig was on it for the last couple of episodes. We do a bit of a kind of a competition where you can get your pictures shown online through YouTube with us. The theme this month is macro, so get all your macro shots in. If you feel inspired by Glenn, then all you have to do is get out there, go and find some slime molds, go and take your stack, edit it all, and then put it on Instagram with the hashtag OM Talks. That's where I will particularly see it. And then, if we love your images, which no doubt we will, then please get them on Instagram, and we will show them on YouTube potentially next time. So absolutely brilliant. And that's all my work bit done. So let's go to question time. And Craig, I'm going to hand over to you a little bit to find the questions whilst I breathe.
Yeah, no worries. Most questions have been answered. So someone was just asking if Macro Studio handles camera raw, but then helpfully Jay Diamond has said it does support OM raw files, outputs as TIFF, LPG or DNG. Some nice comments. So I don't know if either of you saw it, but as we're going through, so Moxie's Heather, her dog threw up outside her house. So she was contemplating taking pictures of the mold on that. And she is, after seeing you talking about dung and taking dung with you, basically, she's she's going to basically probably going to give it a go. So she doesn't feel so bad about giving it a go, taking pictures of vomit.
Get it done. Get it done.
There is a slime mold called dog sick vomit or dog vomit or something.
Yeah, so there was another one of our viewers mentioned it and did give the Latin name for it as well. So I think it's, again, apologies for my pronunciation, Feligo septica, apparently. Yeah. So yeah, dog vomit, which I don't think you actually find it on dog vomit though.
Very fleeting thing. You find it on grass.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there are some nice comments as well. So Jeremy, I think it was the last image from the top 6. He said the lighting's really nice on that image, which I agree with. It's a standout image. I actually like, if you would just flip back one, Richard. I love these like punky one again. Sorry, these punky ones. So I really like these spiky ones personally. So,
okay. Can I just say that the top right-hand one is actually called a holly parachute, and they grow on holly leaves. The bottom left is what it grows into.
Oh, okay, cool. So it almost grows through the spikes, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the top left is what I was talking to before we came on about the ear pick fungus.
Yeah. It looks a bit like lion's mane in a way, doesn't it? That kind of
and so
featheriness.
The bottom central one is called a scarlet caterpillar club, and they grow out of caterpillars that grow at the pupate.
Yeah.
And the bottom right is actually called an eyelash fungus, because if you look very carefully, it's got eyelashes around the edges.
Okay, yeah, it does. Yeah.
Any other questions then?
More comments. So D Drolix 5895, great pictures, very inspiring. He might have missed, or he or she might have missed the beginning, because they've said, how do you find the slime molds? If you go back, so I think someone else earlier also asked, is this presentation going to be available? This is all recorded, so this will be on our on the YouTube channel forever, basically. So you can go back and watch it, pause when you want to. If you want to get to the settings, just pause, screenshot. You can do what you want to, basically. So so no, I think that's covered. We've had Stephen again. He's been quite lots of questions and comments. He's just purchased Macro Studio, so you should probably be on commission, Glenn.
Well,
he's just bought it to give it a try. So apparently it's on a good price at the moment. So he's gone for
Come on, Macro Studio, listen up.
Yeah, exactly. So,
one of the easier ones to get good results out of.
Yeah, which is good. I think you want it to be accessible, don't you? So
yeah.
Don't worry, you don't need to plug it anymore. They've got a sale. We're all right.
Brilliant. But yeah, no, everyone said thank you. I think there was one more question if I can find it. No, I think that is pretty much it. So no, I think we're good. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. A big thank you to you, Glenn, because with this show would not have happened without you. Your knowledge is amazing. It's absolutely outstanding what you know and how you do it. Your images are incredible. I haven't seen anything like what you're able to do. So So a big thank you from me for being a part of the show. Craig, big help as always. Thank you for looking after the comments for me. As you know, it's a hard job trying to juggle 4 jobs at the same time. So thank you. And any final comments from both of you guys?
There were some comments earlier on, actually. So I was trying not to laugh too much, but Dave in Portland was keeping me entertained in the early parts of the show. So yeah, but no, it's always good. I like it when people get involved with the chat. So
all I could say is I survived.
Yeah, you did well. Yeah,
you did amazingly well. Don't you worry about that. So again, and a big thank you for everyone viewing and spending the time with us. It's been 2 hours, so I told you guys it was going to be intense, and hopefully you've drunk through at least 2 coffees, or to keep you guys going. And yeah, a big thank you again, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. So thank you very much.